Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half Danish on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel many times before, albeit the home brewery a little bit more frequently than the away one in this case. But yeah, we've had some great beers from both of them over the years. I would say the home brewery is best known for their different kinds of IPAs and also lagers, whereas the away brewery is known for doing a little bit of everything, and they are, of course, one of my favourite places to go over in Copenhagen. So I'm quite curious to see what this collaboration beer is going to have in store for us, particularly because I know it's a style that both of these breweries can do very well. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. For this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head a little bit to the south of me here in Lund to Malmö, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Hyllie Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Progress. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is listed as a double IPA. Now on the ingredients list, it does just say barley malt, so I'm guessing that it will be a kind of West Coast leaning IPA, this one, but we just need to see how we get on with it. But this one is brewed in collaboration with Warpigs Brewpub from Skåne, the meatpacking district over in Copenhagen, which, as you'll know, is a place that I really enjoy to visit when I head over there. So yeah, we've had a few West Coast IPAs from both of these breweries. The most recent one, I believe, was from Hyllie Bryggeri, the Weta, which was a New Zealand hopped West Coast IPA, but I actually can't remember what the last one I had from Warpigs was, because usually I just drink a beer or two in there when I go over to the brew pub and don't really document it. Maybe I should start doing that actually. But yeah, as I say, very excited to see what this one have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. But yeah, let's crack on. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Hyllie Bryggeri and from Warpigs. We will no doubt add more to both of those lists in the near future, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated. You can also go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on various geographical things. The whole channel has a geography-based tagging system, and you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one both in the Swedish and the Danish playlist, since it is dual nationality. But yeah, 8% double IPA this one. Let's have a little look at my brewery notes before we taste this. So we'll start off with Hyllie Bryggeri, since as I said, these guys are the home brewery. So Hyllie Bryggeri, as I said, are based in Malmö, but they started off as the home brewing experimentations of Mikkeller, who is originally from Vintria, a little bit to the south of Hyllie, the kind of southwestern part of Malmö. But for a number of years, he was a home brewer, and he built up his own brewery in his garage, where he was experimenting with lots of different beer styles and brewing with his friends. But he started brewing back in about 2013. Now, he worked for a number of years in the plumbing industry, and for a period of time he was working for 4 days a week as a plumber and then 1 day with the brewery. But he was also, or is also, good friends with Torsten Ekne, who is the original owner of the Beer Ditch bar in Malmö. And when Beer Ditch began, Michael decided to turn his garage brewery into a proper company, and so he registered Hyllie Bryggeri officially in 2015. So they continue to experiment and grow their portfolio over the next few years, but these days Michael is joined at the brewery by Erik Frithiov, who is a partner in the company and deals with the sales and marketing. But he's also one of the founders of the Great Swedish Beer Festival, and that of course has helped Hyllie grow over the last while. But in 2019, the brewery joined forces with Cycle Pipes and Limhamns Bryggeri to form a new company that owned a brewery building together, and the three companies were brewing their beer there for a period of time. They had a 1,000 litre brew kit, but unfortunately this arrangement only lasted a few months before Hyllie Bryggeri moved out to a farm near Vintria. They said things just, the logistics and things just didn't work out. But over the course of 2020, they were contract brewing a number of their beers. I believe they were doing that at Brukeset Finn in Landskrona, but correct me on that if I'm wrong. But they invested in a new premises in Malmö right next to the central station. This was converted from being a car garage into a brewery. They've got a 2,000 litre brewing system there as well, and they also recruited Johan Lagerkrantz to come in as their head brewer. And he had spent the last 5 years in New Zealand working in the beer industry down there, and they also opened up their Stormgatan tap room just after that. They also have a lunch restaurant at the brewery as well these days, which is worth checking out, and that is something that I do need to do actually. But as of October 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 115 different kinds of beer, and as I said to you, for me, this brewery is best known for their different kinds of lagers and IPAs. So yeah, two of the beers I really would recommend that you try from these guys. It would be the Hyllie Pan, which is the original West Coast IPA, and also the Skånsk Lager. I really like that one. But yeah, again, that's all I can tell you about them for the moment. If you want to learn more, check out the brewery website, follow them on their usual social media, and if you want to learn more about the different beers, you can go and check out some of my other reviews, or you can have a wee look at the Untappd page. But yeah, let's go on and have a look at the Danish side of things then. So Warpigs Brewpub. So Warpigs Brewpub was founded back in 2015, and it's based in the old meatpacking district, Skåne in Copenhagen, and it's not too far away from the central station. You can walk there maybe in about 5-10 minutes. But the company is started off as a subsidiary both of Mikkeller and of Three Floyds, and it's a brewpub, an American barbecue restaurant combined, and the kitchen is currently run by Adrian Claudio Lazar. But for the first 2 years, the brewing team was led by Kyle Wolak, who was originally a dishwasher at Three Floyds, but he left in 2017 to go to Hill Farmstead, and he was replaced by the Singaporean Lan Xin Fu, who stayed with the company until 2019, when she was replaced in turn by Chris Heiss, who I believe is from Germany, and he's still in place today. But to date, these guys have brewed in the region of 600 different kinds of beer, and a small number of these have been released in can, and there were also some brewed for a period of time in the US as well. So just to give you a little background of the two breweries that were involved in starting Warpigs, Mikkeller, of course, were founded back in 2006 by Hyllie Bryggeri and operated for many years as a gypsy brewery. They brewed a lot of their beers in Belgium, but also a few in other places. In 2016, they took over Ale Smith's old brewery in San Diego in California, and then they opened another brewery the following year in New York. But both of those are now, the one in New York has closed and the one in California is closing, and they now also have their Valhalla Blendery in Copenhagen as well. But they are brewing a number of their beers at Toil City over on the other side of Zealand these days, I believe. But yeah, Mikkeller, of course, are a very well-known beer brand all across the world. Three Floyds, on the other hand, are based in Munster in Indiana, a little bit to the south of Chicago in Illinois over in the US, and this company was founded back in 1996 by Mike Floyd and his two sons, Nick and Simon, hence the name Three Floyds. But they're now producing over 10,000 US barrels per year, and they've built a huge reputation for themselves. They're distilling spirits, and yeah, they are a very well-respected American brewery, as you'll know. But this partnership between Mikkeller and Three Floyds lasted until fairly recently. In November of 2021, it was announced that the partnership between the two breweries would end, and that Mikkeller would take control of the brand based in Copenhagen, whereas Three Floyds would take control of the American side of the business. So there is Warpigs USA, which is run by Three Floyds, and there's Warpigs Europe, or Warpigs Brewpub Copenhagen, whatever we're going to call it, that is run by Mikkeller. But as of October 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, according to Untappd, the Warpigs Brewpub has produced 575 different kinds of beer, and yeah, like I said, they do a bit of everything. You'll get different kinds of lager in there, you'll get lots of different kinds of IPAs. You know, just go along, pick something that you like, and you know, quite often they will have some really interesting examples of things there. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about them as well. Again, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website, follow them on their social media to keep up to date with the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about the different beers, or you can check out my older videos. But yeah, let's crack on and have a wee look at this beer itself and see how we go. So yeah, as you can see, the artwork on this one is quite funny. You can see a guy out walking his drone on the lead. I did think that was pretty funny. Plain silver top on this one, 330ml can. This beer was released as part of the temporary assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden at the kind of toward the beginning of October 2022. So yeah, you can see on the side here, there are the Hyllie and Warpigs symbols on this one. You can see Hyllie with the famous Hyllie water tower, and then Warpigs with the famous pigs on top of that too. But yeah, I believe this cost me 40 crowns, so that's about €4, £3.75 sterling, maybe about $4.50 American, something like that. But as we said, an 8% double IPA, this one, it contains only barley malt, so I'm guessing it is going to be more of a West Coast, this one. But let's crack it open and see what we have. This should be quite nice. there we are. A little bit excited as we open it up, but I'm sure we don't have to worry too much about it. Lovely light notes of fruit coming out of the beer as we open it up as well. But we'll just be careful with this one. It seems it's going to have a little bit of head. But there we are. It should be very nice. But yeah, as you can see, we've got the beer out and into the glass now, so we can have a proper look at it. So yeah, this looks pretty interesting. So as you can see, first and foremost, we've got about 1.5 fingers of a frothy, I would say, slightly creamy coloured head. It's almost perfect white, but not 100%. You can see a nice little bit of foamy character to it, but there are 1 or 2 bigger bubbles up toward the top. But in terms of the colour of this beer, this one does look very nice. Now remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjunct you put in will affect the colour of the beer too, but when it comes to IPAs you don't have to care that much about it. But you can see this one, it does look more like a kind of West Coast type IPA. It's got that little bit of natural haze to it, but yeah, definitely a little bit more of a naturally hazy kind of character to it rather than the big soupy gloopy type thing you'll see from the New England IPAs. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but yeah, overall it does have a very rich kind of yellow colour to it, a little bit of a kind of slightly amber type thing as well. So yeah, appearance wise this one does look very, very nice. So let's have a wee closer look at the aroma and just and see how we go with this one. I don't think we need to say any more about the appearance of this. It certainly looks like a West Coast IPA. Let's see if we get that from the flavour, or the aroma and then the flavour. Oh yeah. Yeah, straight away with this one, I'm going to say it smells a little bit like a kind of modern take on the West Coast IPA, if we can call it that. So you're getting a little bit of the malty sweetness, you're getting a lot of kind of oily fruity character out of it. There is a wee bit of green component there, and this is the difference between the more modern West Coasts and the old school ones. The old school ones used a lot of early edition hopping and would give you a big bitterness. The newer ones don't tend to do that as much, which for me, I miss that. I miss the big bitter West Coast IPAs. But yeah, I still enjoy the style regardless. But aroma wise, this is very, very nice. Yeah, there's so many New England hazies out there these days that you miss the more kind of old school ones, the more old school West Coasty type beers. But yeah, as I say, it's got what you would want from this style. So, and again, one thing I should point out for West Coast IPAs is, for me, there's 2 different kind of ways you can take this beer. They can be more oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or they can be a little bit lighter and more bready and biscuity, like the Pliny the Elder from Russian River. And this one for me is leaning more toward that kind of Pliny the Elder type beer. It's definitely more biscuity and more and sort of more kind of bready in a sense. So yeah, let's break this down and describe the aroma for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer for me is definitely a little bit more kind of it's absolutely got a little bit of that kind of fresh white bread crust in there. On top of that, yeah, on top of that you get a definitely a white bread there, and it's actually quite a dense white bread, I have to be honest as well and say. So yeah, a little bit of fresh bread crust, white, sort of dense, but still fresh white bread sitting on top of that. And then you've got all these little other elements in there too. Toward the front of the nose, you can pick up, pardon me, a little bit with a more, you can definitely pick up a little bit more of a slightly woody note to this one. There's definitely a wee touch of a woody character underneath it, but then you've got all the sweetness kind of sitting on top. Yeah, there is a good bit of straight up sweet caramel in there. A lot of, there's a tiny touch of a slightly toasty caramel to it as well. And the more that I smell of it too, I think there's a bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character. So yeah, bread crust, white bread, wholemeal brown bread on top of that, then the kind of brown sugar notes, a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, of course, a straight up sweet caramel, and then a little bit more of a kind of oily, slightly caramelized note in the dead centre pattern. Of course, at 8% ABV, this beer is going to have a good little bit of it's going to have a good little bit of that kind of booziness to it when we actually taste the thing. But aroma wise, the malty side of this beer goes together very nicely. The green component on this is quite interesting as well. So I think there's a bit of mosaic in this. There's just something telling me that there's a good little bit of mosaic in this beer. So on the hoppy side of things, you get a good little bit of earthiness in there, but there's also quite a bit of deep floral character as well. So for me, the floral character, I do wonder, it's a bit difficult to say with this one. You have got a little bit of depth to it, and like I've said, there's 3 different kinds of hoppings that you can do when it comes to IPAs. Early edition hopping within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you much of your bitterness. The old school West Coast IPAs always used to do that. You've got late edition hopping within the last half hour of your wort boil, and that gives you mainly flavour and aroma, but a little bit of bitterness. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil, and that is pretty much all to do with flavour and aroma. But with this beer, you get the impression of a bit of both. You've got a nice bright green component, but you've also got a bit of depth to it as well. So there's a bit of earthiness in there, like I said. You do have a bit of a deeper floral aromaticity, but you've also got some kind of brighter notes to this one as well, which I really enjoy. So yeah, nice little bit of brighter floral aromaticity in there, a bit of deeper character also. But then you also have some, you've also got a little bit of that kind of nice oily fruity character as well. And the fruity character for me in this one's quite interesting because there's a wee bit of like a dry sort of apricot-y note there and some kind of oily mangoes and a bit of pineapple. So maybe could it be something like a Zaka that's in here? I don't know. Because I also do get, I do get a nice little bit of juicy orangey character out of it as well. It might be a bit of Sabro actually, because there is almost a wee touch of that slightly coconutty type thing. But a Zaka, I think, would give the kind of notes that we're getting out of this beer as well. It's always fun to play guess the hops with these beers, but it's quite difficult these days because of simply how many different hops there are. I used to be quite good at this back in the day, of course. But yeah, for me, oily, juicy mango to this one, a little bit of apricot, definitely a wee touch of pineapple as well. And then yeah, it's kind of a tangerine orangey character that you're getting out of this one. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together for me is very, very nice. So yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is time that we have a taste of this one. So yeah, this is the Progress Double IPA coming in at 8% ABV from Hyllie Bryggeri in Malmö here in Skåne in the south of Sweden in collaboration with Warpigs Brewpub from Skåne in central Copenhagen on Sjælland in Denmark. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's nice, that is good. Just going to say thumbs up to both breweries for this one. First impression of it is, it's definitely more of a slightly modern take on the West Coast IPA. I don't find this as bitter as I would the other ones back in the day, but you always have to remember that your palate is developing and different flavours come out differently over time. But it is really quite solidly done, I have to say. It gives you everything that you would expect in terms of flavour profile for this kind of beer. So, yeah, as I say, it's just really nicely done. It's got this one has that bit of green depth to it that you want. The bitterness builds the further into the aftertaste. You've got a nice smoothness to the malt base, and you've also got a bit of sweetness in there as well, and also some of the kind of oily, fruity characters. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is very nice. So a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, wonder if we'll see this beer again, or if it will just be a one-off brew. But yeah, I do like this. One of the things I would say is I wish that Hyllie would use the 440 cans instead of the 330s, but I can understand why they do, because I'm not sure what their capacity is at the moment. They're still building that, of course, but I would love them to do 440 cans instead of these 330s, but that's another story. So yeah, But let's break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So, middle third of the palate then, you've got that nice little bit of fresh bread, white bread crust that we were talking about there. That forms the backbone of the beer. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you're getting a little bit of kind of woodiness in there. And that does give you a wee bit more dryness the further into the aftertaste you go. But on top of the bread crust, there's a little touch of a kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing to the beer as well. Yeah, so there's definitely a wee bit of that, say the bread crust, the wholemeal brown bread, and then you start to get the brighter white bread on top of this one. So it's got all these kind of nice bready layers that you would expect of the West Coast IPA. I think there's, I'm pretty sure there'll be German malt that's been used in this one. That was one of the things I always liked. You could tell the difference between a European brewed and an American brewed West Coast IPA, because the European ones would use, different types of crystal malt and things from Germany, whereas the American ones would use the different kinds of two-row for the most part that you would get over there. But yeah, the bready layers in this beer are very, very nice. So let's focus on the kind of brown sugary bits to this beer. And the brown sugar is kind of what you'd expect. And that's what I would say about this one. It's a kind of solid representation of the style. And you can't ask for much more than that these days. It gives you everything that you would want from a West Coast IPA, or West Coast double IPA, we should say. So, in the dead centre of your palate, you've got that nice oily, boozy, caramelly note. As you move further out from that, you can feel you get a little bit of a more kind of mellow caramel, and then you almost get beyond that just a little bit of a very slightly toasty brown sugar. But yeah, as you push out toward the edges, of that middle third of your palate, you get more of the kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes that you would expect from this kind of style of beer. But yeah, I would say that this beer builds a little bit more sweetness the further into the aftertaste you go with it. But it is absolutely, in flavour profile wise, it is absolutely more reflective of a kind of Pliny the Elder type West Coast IPA rather than a more kind of Sierra Nevada Torpedo type one. It's definitely got that lighter kind of bready, biscuity type vibe to it, but I like that. I certainly do like how that goes together in this one. Yeah, that covers the middle third of the palate. Let's look at the back third of the palate then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there, and it is a kind of white bready character, but the base of the back third, the base of the beer is again like a kind of slightly drier bread crust. On top of that, again, you get the brown bready layer, and it's actually a little bit taller, a little bit more airy, and then you start to get the white bready notes out of the beer too, and again, that's a slightly taller layer to the beer. But yeah, the way that goes together is nice. On top of all of that though, you get some of the kind of more yeasty esters coming out of the beer, and to me that just feels like a very slightly airy white bready character. So yeah, above all of that, you get this more airy white bready character coming out of it, which I think is very, very nice. But yeah, on the back third of the palate, the flavour is definitely taller, and then as you come further forward, you can feel it just condenses down as you go into the middle third of the tongue there, which is quite nice. Let's look at the hoppy side of this beer then, and one thing I will say is you can feel the kind of green component building in this one the further into the aftertaste you go. But yeah, back corners of the palate, you've absolutely got a little bit of earthiness in there, but as you come further forward, you can feel there is a kind of deeper, slightly pine resiny note to this one. And as I say, this beer is not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness, but it does have that depth of green component that you want of the style. But as you move further forward, yeah, you get the nice kind of floral notes, and you get a wee touch of spiciness as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate. Round the front curve of the tongue though, it's a little bit lighter and grassy. You've got a wee bit of oiliness in there as well. from the grassiness too, and a wee bit of zestiness. So yeah, quite interesting. You do get a bit of zestiness from the hops and the kind of brightness, but you've also got that depth that you want from the West Coast style. And of course the New England style would tend to just be more bright than anything else. But yeah, don't think we need to say anything else about the green component for the moment. Front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get that little bit of a bready build up there, and it's kind of white bread again. The base of the front third of your palate is kind of smooth and white bready, and on top of that you've got a nice oily fruity character coming out of the beer as well. And yeah, the fruity character is kind of what I was picking up from the aroma for the most part. If you go to the back of that front third of your palate though, there is a wee bit of there is a slightly stronger, almost like passion fruity note to the beer. But then yeah, as you move further forward, it's a bit more kind of mango-y. You get a bit of an oily mango, there's a bit of dried kind of apricot underneath, but I'm also getting a good little bit of juicy pineapple, which does make me wonder about a Zaka, actually. Does make me wonder if there's a bit of a Zaka in this, because yeah, when you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it is very, very orangey. I think maybe what I said about Sabro could be wrong in this, because I don't get so much of the kind of coconutty notes that you would get from Sabro normally. I think it might just be Mosaic. But it wouldn't surprise me if this was Mosaic and Citra, to be honest with you. It really wouldn't, because there is something familiar about it. But you know, it could be something like a little bit of a Zaka and a wee bit of, you know, Citra or Victoria's Secret or Galaxy or something like that. I really don't know. When they're calling it something like Progress, I do wonder. It makes me think, you know, they're maybe using one of the kind of newer hops in it or something like that. But yeah, fruity wise, bit of passion fruit, oily mango, wee touch of apricot, a little bit of pineapple, and a nice kind of juicy, oily, orangey character. So yeah, the way that this beer goes about its business for me is very nice, and it gets a thumbs up from me. For a West Coast IPA, gives you everything you would want. So, on the mouthfeel side of things, to round off then, for me, top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied beer. Carbonation is very smooth. It's got a bit of that kind of typical Nordic cleanliness to it, but there's a wee bit of oiliness in there as well, which you do expect from the West Coast IPA. IBU wise, I've got a feeling this is about 60, maybe 70 IBUs. So it's getting there. The bitterness, it's kind of interesting because it seems that brewers are kind of gradually reintroducing bitterness into their beers so they can brew I wonder if that's so they can brew proper old school West Coast IPAs. But yeah, this one does feel a little bit more bitter. It could just be because it's a double right enough, and naturally you put a bit more hop in the doubles to balance them out more. So yeah, this one to me feels about maybe 60-ish IBUs. But always take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt, because that's my weakest point of beer reviewing. But as we said, the malt base has a little bit of dryness to it, nice smooth breadiness, but also a good little bit of brown sugar. It covers its alcohol well, but at the same time it does let you know this is a double IPA, and you've got that nice oily fruity character to this one, giving you a bit of sweetness too. But yeah, for me, really nice double IPA. This one, it's grown on me the more that I've drank it. I think it was only rated 3.7 when I had a little look on Untappd, and that's a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. And this kind of goes to show you, take Untappd with a bit of a pinch of salt. A lot of the people that are drinking beer now will not be used to the old school West Coast IPAs that, you know, more seasoned craft beer drinkers are, and this one is a bit more kind of true to the style, I would say. So bear that in mind when you try this one. This is a proper old school West Coast kind of Pliny the Elder type IPA, this one. So yeah, I think it's really nicely done. Gives you everything you want from the style, and it's another solid beer from both Hyllie and from Warpigs. So I think we can leave it at that for this review. Give this one a go and see what you think of it. Comes highly recommended from me. This is a style I very much love, and I do miss, to be honest with you. I do miss having West Coast IPAs. I'd love for there to be more diversity in the IPAs. You know, some West Coast or some black IPAs, some New Englands, not just for it all to be New Englands. But yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both Hyllie and Warpigs as well. And we will see about doing more from these guys at some point in the near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, thanks for watching. Check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and there will be more reviews to come. Slàinte, Skål, cheers.